Hey everybody, so welcome back. So for today's project, we are finally going to address the issue with the missing windshield on the Indy Lite. So for those of you who subscribe to my channel, you guys kind of already know the history of the sled. If you don't subscribe, go ahead and subscribe, then go ahead and take a look at the other videos on the channel. And it'll kind of give you a brief history on the Indy Lite as far as what has been done to it, the general rehab, track swap, carb cleaning, and everything else. So, for those of you guys who have found this through YouTube, as far as the looking for an alternative for a windshield modification to the Indy Lite, this is what we're going to be talking about today. So, as many of you guys know, the Indy Lite, the windshield mounting system is kind of unique to this sled. Polaris used a two-piece system when they mounted the windshield to the hood. And what it is, it's not a traditional design like on the Fusion where that windshield just goes right through the hood. There was actually a secondary mounting piece that actually stood on top of the hood, and then the windshield mounted to that. And what happens is, over the course of time, those mounts get broken because they're just plastic. They're really not that rigid, and they're susceptible to damage and breakage and everything else. So what happens is those parts are pretty scarce on the market. Polaris no longer makes them, and even the ones that you can find on Craigslist or eBay, they're either already broken or damaged in some sorts, or they're just priced way high that it's really not, it doesn't make sense to really go ahead and buy it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and modify the mounting system and have it go against like a traditional wedge chassis, like an XCR or an XLT, where the windshield is going to mount to the hood using traditional methods. It is going to require some modifications to the headlight bucket, but we're going to talk about that. And another thing we're going to do is I'm going to use a windshield from a Polaris Gen 2 sled for this application. It's something we have lying around, and we might as well just repurpose that and go from there. That windshield is a little bit bigger for the sled. It doesn't fit right now, but what we're going to do is we're going to modify it so it does fit, and we're going to reuse that and so it doesn't go in the trash. All right, so what you need to do first of all is, if you're going to go down this route, you have to essentially sacrifice your hood mounting bracket to do this. Unfortunately, you have to cut it up, and since the bracket on mine was already destroyed and held together by tape and a bunch of other junk, it was really no big loss. But essentially what I've done is I've taken the mount off, and I used a angle grinder just to zip it off on both sides. And then what I did is, and we'll go into a little bit more detail when we're actually mounting the windshield on, is I mounted the headlight bucket to the actual hood, and below this trim piece there are two screws that are going through the hood, which holds the mount, the headlight bucket to the hood. And then the back of the pod actually sits nicely right on the cowl of the sled. So and it's level and actually looks pretty good. So why don't we do this? Why don't we get the windshield up on the sled, and we'll show you what we're going to look at so far. All right, so here's the Gen 2 in its present state, just on the hood of the sled. And if you look, the actual contour of it is actually pretty good as far as the radius on the front. Obviously, it's going to have to be relieved, so it fits around the headlight, right? But if you look, we come back over towards the sides, you'll see that it is a little bit long. So what we're going to do is we're going to shorten it up and essentially cut off those mounting tabs first to have it actually lay flat and figure out where we're going to relieve it for the headlight bucket. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at it. I'm going to zip off those two mounting clips, and we'll come back to see where we are in the fab. So So let's do that now. Alright, so I already zipped those two original mounting tabs off because they didn't line up where the where it's gonna go through the hood, so we're gonna have to basically redo those anyway. But what I did, as far as what's gonna be essentially the first cut around the windshield, around the headlight bucket is, what I did is I measured the inside of the headlight bucket, and that's essentially 8.25 inches. So what I did is I found the midpoint of the bucket, and what we're gonna do is we essentially lined up with the original mounting hole from Polaris to line up the windshield. And what I did is, it'll be kind of hard to see, I took a Sharpie and essentially I outlined the headlight bucket staying true to the inside of the bucket as far as the trim. Because what's going to happen is once we make the relief cut, the windshield is actually going to fit behind the trim piece, and this is going to actually act as a clamp to hold the windshield on. So why don't we go ahead and do that now? We're going to cut it small. We'll do a preliminary cut, see how it goes, and then we'll cut it to final size. So let's do that now. Okay, so the first cut has been done, and this is just a mock-up. So it's been relieved around the headlight bucket, and so if you go around, so because of the shape of the windshield, it really needs to lie back a little bit. So right now, if you look, the back end is kicking up. So what we're going to do is essentially we're going to make a pie cut, and we're going to take a wedge out the front. And if you look, you can see. What we're going to do is we're going to make it a pie cut, and it's going to take it back all the way to the back. And what that's going to do, it's going to allow the front to drop, and then we're going to elongate the cut for the headlight bucket, so it will drop a little bit further down. So why don't we go ahead and do that, and let's see how it fits after we make the relief cuts. Alright, so I just made the pie cuts and made the cut around the headlight bucket a little bit deeper. So now the windshield is sitting nice and flat against the hood on both sides. And there's the pie cut I made, just to give you a reference of how much I took off. It's probably about 1.5 inches, 1 3/4. Alright, so we're getting pretty close. What I have to do now is I have to make a cut across the back side of it, because right now it's a little bit long, so I have to play around with that. But the next thing I have to do is I'm going to make essentially a relief cut on this to essentially make the notches so it's going to sit into that groove. So that's going to be the next step. So at the end, this windshield is probably going to come down another 1.5 to 1 3/4 in height. So why don't I go ahead and do that and go and just continue on. Alright, so all the trimming is done on the windshield, and here's the result of all the trimming. I actually did a lot more trimming than I initially thought I was going to do, but at the end of the project it actually worked out pretty well. So this is what I use for doing all the cuts. I just use this quartering cable oscillating tool with a wood and metal blade, and it actually worked out very well cutting through the plastic on the shield. It gives you a lot of control, cuts in a nice straight line, and you know, it's not too aggressive, so it doesn't get away from you. So if you have one of these, I would highly recommend it. Using, you know, over using, like I said, a 10 snips or a hacksaw. This actually did a great job cutting the windshield. So that being said, why don't we back up and take a look at the finished product. So there you go. All right. So in the end, it actually worked out pretty well. I didn't actually end up doing any cutting on the overall length, because once I did the final trimming, the windshield kind of came down and the edge of it kind of falls right on the back of the hood. So as far as I'm concerned, that's perfectly acceptable. So it's nice and flat against the hood. It's sitting in the groove all the way around. It's only on there temporarily. I had to go get some of the those rubber O-ring clamps. So, but what I did for now, just to show you kind of how the stake pockets ended up at. So, you know, there's 1, 2, 3, right? 1, 2, 3. Again, that was just done by marking the windshield and allowing them to poke through the hood. And right now they're just held on there by plastic zip ties. I'll go to the dealer, get the rubber mounts, and so that'll be a permanent. Okay. All right. Back up, take a bigger picture of it, show you guys how it looks. All right, so there you go. Here's a good solution for all you Indy Lite owners with a similar situation and trying to keep them on the trail. Again, I use a windshield from a Gen 2. It doesn't have to be one from a Gen 2. You can use the one from the original Indy Lite if you want to. It's just a matter of leaving it around the bucket and bringing it back down. But doing it this way, it kind of brings it back more to the look of the XLTs and the wedge chassis and everything else. So there you go. I hope you like it. If you do like it, give me a thumbs up. If you like this video, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. My channel is mostly snowmobiling stuff, tools, stuff I do out in the garage. If you have any thoughts, concerns, questions, comments, go ahead and leave them in the comments box and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And as always, thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye.